Good morning, traders. It's Perry with StartupTrading.com. Had to do a little earlier video this morning. So looking back at yesterday for the NQ, it was basically ranging between 530 and 535, uh, making up that high. I pointed out the day before, right? Bad news was still shaken off by this market and or considered good news. So it is what it is. So as we look at the ES, we can see that it basically went from 60.50 to over 6100 on the cash market on the SPX, right? And it ended right at basically 610 on the SPY, with the majority of the day, you know, right around 605 to 607 half. And then you had that retest of 605 and then straight up to 610 later in the day. Uh, Looking at what happened to structure, right? We repaired and got rid of some poor structure from the past. And if we look at what's left, right, a little bit of poor structure on everything except for the Nasdaq yesterday. The Nasdaq didn't even leave any poor structure. It was a very sound auction for the Nasdaq, and the other ones have some clear markers. But as you can notice, right, we closed above value for the Nasdaq, up near you know another split in the auction process, and then the other indexes all had some single prints, which they have retested basically in the overnight session. More on that in a little bit. So the title of the video is Retail Friday, because it is. Retail sells at 8:30. It's just a two-star event, right? But it is it can cause a little bit of volatility around the print, so you might want to tighten up around then, and or look for some action outside of the current price action, either above or below that you would long and short. I would be more tempted to try to find a spot from before I'd like to bid than under it, than something over it that I'd like to sell. Um, so as we look at, really, there's nothing going on in earnings. Keep in mind, the market is closed on Monday, right? The stock market's closed for President's Washington's birthday, and futures will trade. I'm 99% sure of that, and will close at 1 p.m. Eastern time. You can check your local listings if you want to trade it. Um, they'll open normally on Sunday night. We do have some oversold or overbought, I'm sorry, overbought conditions at the Nasdaq as well. So we'll see if that plays any factors into what's going on today. So looking at, really, for today, on this. On the cash market closed at 61.15. Futures are down about 9. So we're just, if we were to open here, it'd be just slightly above 6,100. You can see that that's going to be a make or break point, or just basically a support and resistance line. Not a lot there, actually. And if that doesn't hold, you could get a retest 50 points lower. It wouldn't be out of the question to hit 60.50 once again. Otherwise, if you could hold above there and start making progress, you can see that yesterday's high was in the SPY at 610. We'll get into that more in a minute. But you can see 61.50 would be your next marker for the cash above. Uh, Looking at the SPY, you can see 610 is one of the bigger markers for today. 600 on the downside. I don't know if you can get all the way down to 600. It is a Friday, but it would really have to do a lot that's 100 points lower than, basically where we closed yesterday. And right now we're trading 609.13, so we're just under the 610. So we could kind of float around. I think fair value is basically 607 up to maybe 612, that 50-point range, and we'll see if we can break that. 614 would be where I would probably just end for the day, to be honest with you. And if you want to, you know, looking for some markers, 620 should be your max today. Uh, I don't think that that's probably on the table. That's 110 points higher than the ES is currently trading as I speak here at 7:42 a.m. And as we look at the Qs, right, the Qs are trading 530, 536. So just above this 535 marker, and you can see that 530 should be your floor. So that would be the NQ is actually down 36 points right now. To hit this, this would be another 230 points down, more than likely 220, let's call it. So you would be down 250 for the day to hit this 530. I would assume that is your floor today. I don't know if you can get any progress under that whatsoever, and I would be more surprised if you can get down below uh, 532.50 to 533. So that would be about 60 points lower than we're trading right now. That'd be about 100 points lower, and that'd be about 30 points under the overnight low that we have at this point in time. So looking at where we're at, we're just basically in this huge 200-point range for the ES. We're getting closer to the top if we can't muster any action above. So 61.48 half is your previous untested point of control that goes back to January 24th. That's your marker to see if we can get above or below it. Uh, on the untested points of control issue. And then as you see, yesterday's point of control was 60.99. So I think that's your first reference between 60.99 and 61.48. So that again, that's that 50-point range. Excuse me, I'm talking about here. So as we look at the one time framing, again, if we were to open now, we'd be opening right around this previous resistance. That's really been resistance since it traded on December 26th for the Nasdaq. So right around this 22,075 level, we're trading 22,071 right now. And then for the if you can hump over that, I would say you're looking at 281, and then 400 is and probably just slightly under 400 to this 387.75. That would be 400 points higher than we're trading, or 300 points, excuse me, higher than we're trading right now, which definitely is doable in the grand scheme of things for today. But you've got to break over this, and then I would assume there's going to be at least two checkbacks to this 2275 sometime between uh, 10:15 and 2:30 before you would even have a chance to get back up to this 387 area. And then here's that, 41.48. Remember, right above there is that untested point of control. And then from there, I think things tighten up to 41.65. That should be, you know, that's really what you're looking for. It's, it will be a lot easier for the ES to get an all-time high today because it is so much closer to it than the NASDAQ. So keep in mind as the ES hits some of this, resistance where traders are going to have to think about do they really want to push it to an all-time high or not, which is entirely on the table. If it stalls there, that's probably going to stall the Nasdaq. So keeping that in mind, if you're playing the Nasdaq, you might want to watch the ES out of the corner of your eye. Overnight action is 25.5 points, and as we look at again where we ended for the night. Sorry, wrong one. Let's get back in here a little bit. Sorry about that. So we got this resistance block for the Nasdaq that goes up to uh, 22,210, let's call it. And then you got potential support right at value area high as we've come into, because remember we closed above value yesterday. So all we've done so far in the overnight auction, although it might look a little bigger of a pullback, you can see that once you got below the settlement, you just quickly ran to the value area high zone as I draw, which is 22,036 to 22,052. And as we, look at that, that's really the marker. So we could get some backing and filling in here. And then if you fall into value, you have to think that the next logical point would be if you stay in there, if you get acceptance back in yesterday's auction, that you're going to test yesterday's point of control, which is 21,950. Very similar for the ES, except the ES has these splits in the auction. So the bears holding it below this 61.13, 61.14. That's going to be your bogey to see if it can go. So what I'd really like to see is most, if not all, of these single prints cleared up to test this auction, not touch the point of control if you're bullish, right? And then return higher. It doesn't mean you're going to make new highs, but it means you're going to settle back in this area of the auction that is from basically 61.27 up to 46 before you decide whether you want to keep pressing that higher or not. Very similar for the Dow. You can see it's done a little bit better job at getting back down here. I'm pretty sure Jack's around, but just in case he is not, we will look at his day framing. Uh, and this is the study I think he's been sharing with you guys, minus the blue lines. Uh, but basically, the bid needs to hold at this 22,050 level, or potentially go back and test uh, the halfway back from yesterday, this 21,937 half, and that could be a quick go under there. Just keep in mind that as you get under, if you do get under this 22,050, that it could potentially end up becoming short-term resistance or longer-term resistance for this session once you get above it. So I'd watch that marker, even though at this point in time there's only about an 8-point difference. I would watch that more than the overnight low uh, as we go into it. So just to recap, see if we can hold around these value area high zones for the NASDAQ. See if you can, which side of the auction you end up being. Basically you're looking for, do you get acceptance back below 6,110 basically, or do you find acceptance above 6,130? And you could jostle around in that 20-point range for a little bit this morning to see if you hold. But we'll see what happens when the bell rings, right where we are. If we're still on no man's land, as I would call this, between these this area, or if we're starting to get back above this 61.31, which is value area high, and retesting the higher ends of the auction. And you can just drag down on the indexes to see what poor structure will be left. You can see there's no poor structure for the ES. So if they open up basically above value and hold there, uh, the bears are still in a state of squeeze at that point in time. Anyone who thought that it was a good idea to short against these levels is dead wrong. And then all rallies start with a short squeeze. We've already went up quite a bit. We're back up to the top of the range. So now it's what kind of pressure can be put on them, if anything. And then again for the NQ, you're looking at this 22,300 basically, and then 22,400. Easy to remember those 100 point increments, and you need to get basically and hold above R1, which is 22,214, let's call it, to have a chance at some of those other milestones. So I think you got a pretty good game plan here, uh, and just be a little bit fluid. Keep in mind that at 8:30 that news comes out, and it is not major news like CPI was on Wednesday, but it is enough that it could change the landscape of the auction here in the early goings today. You guys have a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll see what Jack's got going on. I'll be around in the room on and off today, and I will talk to you on Monday.